Hey everyone, welcome to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. I am your new host, Jen Amos, and I want to welcome you all to the new year. Happy New Year. It's 2021, and I have the fortune of interviewing my mentor, my AKA boss, Josh Elledge, who is the founder and CEO of Up My Influence, and and before I come in, the main host of The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. Josh, welcome to the show. Welcome to your show.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be here and sit in the other chair for once. And Jen, it's 2021. We made it.
We survived. We survived.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm the consummate optimist, so I can only hope for great things. Listen, it's not, after 2020, listen, I am feeling pretty good. Like I feel like we've rounded the corner on all the doomsday stuff, and now let's have an amazing year. I think everybody's ready for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just feel like 2020 was such a blur. I remember just at the beginning of the year in March, I was in denial. A lot of us were in denial that the pandemic was starting and social distancing was being enforced, and we were all forced essentially to be at home and wear masks in public places. And at first we thought, oh, it's just going to last for a couple weeks, no big deal. This will go by, and then here we are, 2021.
Yeah. And it's really now having interviewed over 500 people for the Thoughtful Entrepreneur, you ask them very specific questions about what's business like for them today. And it's very inspiring, which is why I love this show, because you get to hear from so many people and it's very immediate, and you get to hear so many stories about what they're doing to show up in a way where they can do good in the world. And, I was just struck by, I remember one survey that I saw, and that survey asked business owners, and this came out like sometime maybe like in August of 2020. And it said, business owners, what's going on with your business? Did you either shut down? Did you, systems, all systems go, nothing really changed for you? Or did you pivot in a major way? Did you change how you do business in a major way? And it was about 2/3 of the respondents said, we made major changes to how we do business. And I was so struck by that, and struck in a way where I was so proud of the business owner, the entrepreneurial community, because I see that as a response. I see that as leadership. I see that as, if I'm the captain of a ship, and I'm responsible for, keeping a lot of other ships safe, and something new happens, can I respond quickly so that I can save lives, so that I can help our armada win the battle? And that's what I see entrepreneurs having done. So whether or not you have confidence in political leaders or elected officials, I believe strongly in the business leaders of the world, who are responding, saying, I can help and I can do good in the world. And as a result, I'll end up doing well while I do good. And that's the thing. I absolutely, I've been in business for myself off and on, my whole life. But, I walked away from regular corporate America just after the year 2000. So it's been a long time that I've done this, and and if anyone knows my story, you'll know, the first 6 businesses were not so great, but it was all part of my journey. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just so inspired when I hear these great stories on the Thoughtful Entrepreneur, of people who responded and said, you know what, I am the right woman or man for this opportunity. If not me, who? If not when, if not now, when, right? And so they just jumped on that, and decided, I am the person that needs to do this. And certainly, for iterations of certainly my last 2 companies, it's been absolutely, response to this emotional feeling like I have to do what I'm doing. or
Right.
this opportunity, because I can see that I'm just uniquely qualified. And I don't say that in an ego way at all. I
Right.
say
Right.
that in a
Right.
crap, I'm looking around and I'm not seeing anybody else do this in the way that I want to do this. And so, it really is a leadership thing, where it's like, if I don't act, people will suffer.
Mhm.
Because if I don't do what we do now in B2B sales, I see a lot of businesses going to stagnate, go out of business,
Right.
going to pay unnecessarily for all this dumb advertising and marketing that no longer works. And it
Mhm.
really hasn't ever worked that well, but they just think that they're supposed to because that's what gurus are saying.
Mhm.
So that's the thing that, when you get to the point in business where you're making the money that you need and you're doing all right, right? Your needs are met. You're going to need more than money to motivate you. And in my case, like, that's one of the major things that I've learned in over 500 interviews now, is that, it's, why am I here? Why am I on the earth right now? Like,
Mhm.
what do I do that nobody else can quite do? And, that's the thing. That meaning is the thing that motivates these business leaders. I've seen that so consistently. Because, again, everybody on this show, they're doing 6, 7, or 8 figures. I mean, we do a lot of vetting, and these
Mhm.
are
Mhm.
really amazing people.
Mhm.
And it's, man, you want to change your life? Go interview 500 people who are successful in business. And so that's what I'm excited now, Jen, with the opportunity, this episode represents. It's going to be a fun next 500 episodes for you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm absolutely, honored to kind of carry on the torch. Obviously, you'll be around. We know that. But to be able to kind of walk in your shoes and have that same experience of, interviewing these 6, 7, 8 figure, business owners and entrepreneurs. Josh, as I was hearing you talk, I feel like the common theme amongst what makes a successful entrepreneur is really that sense of personal responsibility
Yeah.
to do good. Because just like you said, you need to have more motivation than making money. And the last, even just the last 100 whatever episodes of 2020, I've been so inspired to hear how people have pivoted in such a strange time. And there was this one couple that really inspired me, and they actually created a special way to make it easier to breathe with these masks that were all
Mhm.
required to wear. And this couple, they were already retired. They were already very successful. However, they got out of retirement because they felt like they needed to do it. They had the
Yeah.
solution. They knew they needed to get it out there. And so they did it. They got out there, they got out of retirement, and they know what it takes to, build a business from the bottom up.
Yeah.
But again, just that sense of responsibility. And that's what I hear from you. And I think that is almost really the definition of a thoughtful entrepreneur, is that
Yes.
drive to give back, to know that you uniquely have a solution, and it is your responsibility to take that into the marketplace and help people.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, there are a lot of people that have toyed with the idea of starting a business. And I think a lot of times it's like, well, that sounds like a great opportunity to make a quick buck.
Mhm.
And that happens, and some people
Mhm.
do, and they stay, very money motivated. And I'm not judging. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Mhm.
I've just seen, again, for the thoughtful entrepreneur out there, and the person that is truly committed to making an impact in the world, they just live life differently. Like, you can feel it in their heart.
Mhm.
It's that having purpose
Mhm.
is just so rewarding. And, if there's one thing I remember from Covey, it's the analogy of just how vital it is that we have purpose. He uses this example of, if your job were to type up a report, and at the end of every workday, even if you were making, like, let's say you're making a couple $100,000, which is a great income.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, every day, the boss, you do all this work, boss comes up the stairs, opens up the door, looks at the report, chucks it out the window, and says, "See you tomorrow." And then you
Mhm.
have to do that over and over and over again every day. You might think initially, yeah, sign me up for that. But your
Mhm.
spirit will not allow you to do that for very long. As human
Right.
beings, we need to have purpose. We need to feel
Right.
like we're having an impact. And so
Mhm.
that's another thing that I've seen, not just from a, well, what's our mission, purpose, and values as a leader, but I've also seen this pretty consistently where it's very important that as a leader of people, you have an organization, you have a team,
Mhm.
you, you, a transactional relationship with your team, again, that's only going to last so long. I pay
Right.
you X dollars an hour. You show up, you do the work, right? We're beyond
Right.
that. And in fact,
Absolutely.
you look at working with millennials and Gen Z as well, and that's particularly pronounced.
Absolutely.
Boomers and some Gen Xers, like they're still give an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, right? Like that,
Right, right.
that's a relic
Yeah.
that's has been slowly disappearing.
Mhm.
We need to feel like what we do matters.
Absolutely.
And again, more younger generation rely on that.
Yeah, and I can attest to that as a millennial. For someone who, in her young 20s, was fired from 4 jobs consecutively because I just couldn't find purpose in my jobs.
Mm.
And so, for the last decade of myself being a thoughtful entrepreneur, I have found more purpose and fulfillment and a sense of responsibility than I did working those jobs. And
Yeah.
so it's really, again, I'm honored and excited to kick off a 2021 to be able to, you carry on the torch as we were talking about and interview all these incredible thoughtful entrepreneurs because we need to hear these stories more often, these real stories of these real people coming into play and having that sense of responsibility to serve our community. So Josh, I have to talk about the fact that you did 500 episodes, 500 interviews.
Yeah.
um why?
Yeah.
What is let's talk, let's get behind, maybe, like, pull back the curtain and talk about like what these 500 episodes mean for the thoughtful entrepreneur as well as Up My Influence.
Yeah. So the thoughtful entrepreneur. So I go way back in the Wayback Machine. So I was podcasting back in 2007.
Mm,
And this was back in the day when you had to hand code all of your own RSS feeds. And all I was
wow.
doing was taking my radio segment that I was doing, and I was doing syndicated radio on
Mm,
as many as, like, I think 13 radio stations every week. And so I would take the episodes that I could record, I would record those on the web, and then I would chop them up and I'd put them into an RSS feed. In some places, I think you can still find it. There's kind of the original Savings Angel show.
mm,
And I know it's still out there somewhere. But then there's, of course, there's the Savings Angel show, which then I started that. I want to say 2014, I think.
wow.
And yeah, I think it was about 2014, maybe 2013. And that's when I really got into podcasts, because that was a proper podcast then,
Mm,
where I wasn't just like repurposing my radio segments. But in in that experience, and that was, we started off with 3 episodes a week, and that was a lot of work, because it
mm.
was just me behind the microphone, and I did that for a while. Then it went down to 2, then 1, and now I kick out an episode every couple months. As you can see, it's where I put my focus is has obviously been entirely, without my influence. So the thoughtful entrepreneur, you can go back, look at episode 1, and it's Jennifer Longworth who started off. And so Jennifer was on our team. She's a podcaster. And I said, let's do this podcast where we can feature some of our clients, maybe
Mm,
some of our partners, and really use it as a tool to show appreciation.
mm,
Not so much that, initially, I don't know that we were like, oh, we're going to build this amazing audience, and we're going to build all this influence with this huge listening audience. It really has never been, that is a lovely, wonderful byproduct of the work that we've done. But our
mm.
primary mission is, it's for us, we want to build relationships. So Jennifer had been doing a wonderful job of this. And I was looking at, and it really came down to asking ourselves, being very honest about where do our customers come from? And we're just like so many other people I've talked with, we get our best customers and clients through networking, word of mouth, introductions, meet in person, very relationship focused or origins.
Yeah.
And so we really got to thinking, it's like, well, wait a minute, we've got this podcast. What would happen if we kind of really ramped this up? And so we said, well, let's go from one episode a week, which I think roughly what we were doing. Let me take over the hosting duties because I need to do it. And I got to tell you that as a business, we had goofed around. Like I kind of spent a little bit of time in the kind of the ClickFunnels world and the sales funnel world. And, a little bit, trying to understand and study paid advertising. And Jen, it was miserable. It was a miserable experience for us because I think what we offered was very much what we learned is that it like a lot of other agencies, the best clients were coming from relationships. And when we were trying to advertise and just like, hey, look at us, now, join our free webinar, all the traditional stuff, right? And now here's our email drip campaign. The quality of those relationships were just terrible on whole. There was a few good people, but mostly it was a miserable experience. I found that I felt like I was either really bugging people or the people that I did get to talk with, I'm like, these aren't the people that we really want to talk with. These are folks that seem to have a little bit too much time on their hands, which is why they took the time to like watch this and watch that and all this, consume all this content and like pay attention to our sales funnel and buy our opt-in. And, anyway, I remember one conversation in particular and I never was really, it wasn't authentic to who I am. And I'm very much a relationship focused person. And so when this relationship is just kind of like slammed together because we're only advertising to them because we want them to buy our thing. And now we're hoping to have a transaction call, to talk about how we can, I remember I had one guy, he's like, all right, go ahead. And what's your pitch? Sell me your thing. Wow. And I was like, after I got done with that call, it was like a moment of clarity. And I was like, it's so out of alignment with who I want to be and how I want to run my company. So anyway, that's what led to, we are going to be much more generous. So the money I would normally spend in paid ads or whatever, I'm just going to invest in relationships with the people that I really want to form relationships with. And so we just started reaching out to all of our dream ideal clients. So when you listen to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur, I am not just interviewing them for the audience. I'm interviewing them. And some of the questions you'll hear me ask, I'm interviewing them in a, do I want to work with this person? Or could I possibly bring value to this person? Or, is this someone that I should be hiring? So you'll hear the questions that I've asked you, he asked that question for himself. And I would say, honestly, most of the questions I ask, it's like Oprah, right? Why she's such a good, she goes, I just ask the questions I want to know. And they just happen to be in alignment with my audience. She said something to the effect of that.
I love that.
So we then, so the show started going to 3 episodes a week, then 5, and then the momentum really started kicking in when people were like, when we really put the word out, like, hey, we are actively looking for guests. And it got all the way up to 7 episodes a week. There's been some weeks where we've pumped out like 10 episodes because we had so many in the hopper. So when I share the fact that we do a daily podcast, a lot of podcasters like, how do you do that?
Right.
And I tell them, I say, well, look, it's 7 episodes a week, and they're usually no more than like 20 minutes. So I can fit it within a 30-hour frame. So if I'm talking 7 episodes a week, and we usually do more, that's 3.5 hours out of a 40-hour work week. So
Yeah.
what else am I supposed to be doing?
And,
Like,
also to add upon that, Josh, is like, we're talking to people anyway. You just happen to be recording it. We're going to network
yes,
with people anyway. So it really isn't a lot. Like if you actually break down the math, like you said, it's maybe just 3 hours or so a day, out of the whole work day, or actually out of the whole work week.
right. Oh yeah, totally. And a lot of podcasters, especially early stage podcasters, they're doing all their own work. They're doing their editing and they're doing
Mm-hmm.
production and publishing. And obviously I have an amazing team.
Mm-hmm.
And so all I have to do is show up and follow my curiosity. All of our guests have a pre-interview from someone on our team as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have notes, I have everything I need from them. And I'll tell you that this is very much, hosting an interview or hosting a podcast too is very much a skill that if you exercise those muscles, you get better and better and better at. And so it becomes easier. So a lot of earlier podcasts, when they hear, again, daily podcasts, they're like, it blows their mind. I'm like, once you start doing it, you will adapt. And then it won't be that hard for you. It's like, having run a couple of marathons, you asked me, prior to this concept of running a marathon, and I'd never run one before, never run more than like a 5K. And like, what do you think about running a marathon? I'm gonna be like, that sounds insanely hard. It's almost impossible. I don't think I could ever do that.
Right.
And then, once you just start gaining the momentum in that direction, it no longer becomes hard, because now you're just going through the motions and you keep on showing up. And that's another thing too, and one of the best books I read in 2020 was Atomic Habits. And what separates champions from amateurs, I like how I just pronounced amateurs, is that champions do it bored, they don't get bored. They keep on showing up to the gym. And when other people are like, I don't want to, like, it's not fun anymore. Like, it was kind of fun those first couple of weeks because it was novel and it was new and it was, it was new experience for me. Like, I'm an Enneagram type 7. Like, I need variety. But one thing I've learned is that if I keep trying new things, I become that master or jack of all trades and master of none. And that's not what you want to be. If you remember the book, Now Discover Your Strengths. So the best athletes in the world are masterful at one aspect of the game. And so for me, I know that I have to keep on. And that's another thing I've learned in a lot of these interviews. I hear what people did to get the momentum going is they found something that worked and they did it 500 times and 1,000 times. And they kept on doing it when everybody else would give up because they got bored. So I've been one of our clients, Russ Yeager. I've been working with him, and I'm following his workout plan. And on March 1st, like, I set a goal, and I also set a commitment. And so by now, we're recording this a little earlier, but it's technically secret. It's actually still 2020 when we're recording this. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell the listening audience. But as of when I'm recording this, so I started in, through the month of September, October, November, December. So 4 months as of when you're listening to this, I've been at the gym, assuming I didn't get a bad injury. I'm kind of projecting into the future a little bit, for 4 months, 6 days a week. And, it is very mundane. And I'm like, here I am again. But I keep on showing up. So thankfully, I mean, there's little hacks you can do to keep it fresh for yourself. But, it's the same thing with like the 3,000 hours Gladwell talks about, the Beatles going to Hamburg, Germany. That's when they became, they really moved themselves as, because they got to perform for like 6 hours a day for like 7 days a week. It was something like that. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. But it was something like that. That after that season in Hamburg, they really tightened up their act and they became something special.
Mhm.
Doing 500 podcast episodes, showing up at the gym, 4 months, 6 days a week consecutively, that's where you start to get into masterful territory. So if there's one goal, now that we're at the beginning of 2021, and a lot of people, kind of take this as New Year's resolutions or, kind of recommitting to whatever, that's the secret. Please do read Atomic Habits. If there's one book you read, kind of just in terms of like goal setting and how do you do what you do, it's just showing up and doing the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think when you really interview very successful people, you come to find that the way they got there sounds pretty boring. And, the mundane doesn't make a good story, right? And it doesn't end up in Hollywood. However,
Yep.
it is the mundane that gets you to a certain level of success. And so I really appreciate you elaborating on that. And hopefully this is a good lesson to our listeners too, to know that we just found a formula that worked and just kept going at it. And 500 episodes later, here we are, 2021, and Jen has taken over. Also, Josh, the other thing that you mentioned, I really liked how you talked about what traditional marketing and advertising turns out to be, because there's so many people, so many entrepreneurs who try to figure that out. They try to figure out the funnels, the online marketing, the advertising, only to find that if they do catch someone, it's almost bittersweet. And so I want to talk a little bit more in a way about the science and the reasoning why we do podcasting. And I want to also add to that very often people say it's all about relationships. It's all about relationships. But there's a certain way to do relationships, right, Josh? And I'd like for you to kind of elaborate, again, pulling the curtains aside pulling behind the curtains to say, like, what is the science? Like, why is this working for us?
Yeah. And look, so, with the Thoughtful Entrepreneur, many of the guests that you've heard, or at least I should say a percentage of them anyway, have gone on to become our clients. And the podcast has given us the opportunity to invest in those relationships. Now, if the guest has no interest or no need for what we do, then we're honored to have spent that time with them. And we find out if there's anything else we can do for them. I don't need every relationship to turn into a client. I know that, amateurs convince and leaders sort. And so my job is just to provide the greatest good that I can for that person in that time. But, when you spend time in proximity with somebody, let's say back when we were going to conferences, you get to talking with somebody, you're like, what do you do? What do you do? Oh, interesting.
Right.
Hey, let's grab 30 minutes next week and see if it makes sense for us to work together. That's our whole business model. That's all we do. And as a result of this podcast that you're listening to, we've created well over, just this podcast alone, we've created well over $1 million in business just from this. And it's because, again, another book that I just love, you mentioned earlier, is A Go-Giver. I'd read, in fact, Go-Givers Sell More by Bob Berg. And if you're particularly interested in how this applies to sales, but how we do what we do comes down to 3 things. Number one, authority. And you have to know that today's consumer, and everybody's a consumer, I don't care who you're selling to, they are going to check you out. And if they go to your website and it looks like amateur hour, or if they check you out on social media and it doesn't look like you've been around for very long, or it doesn't look like you have zero social proof, I'm not saying that that's going to rule you out, but it's not going to help you. So you have to understand, think of what the customer journey is. What is someone going to do when they're introduced to you for the first time? Someone hears this podcast for the first time. What are they going to do? Or they're going to hear me as a guest on another podcast. They're going to Google me, or they're going to go to upmyinfluence.com and they're going to look at my website and they're going to judge me. And they're going to judge me very superficially, very unfairly. And that's okay, because we all do that. You have to understand we're, and I've said this before, like, we're living in a swipe left, swipe right world. We are. And so knowing that, you just got to spend time on your authority, and you don't have to have it all fixed overnight. But just know that as you work on it, business is going to get easier for you. It's
Mhm.
going to get much easier for you to sell. It's going to get much easier for partnership deals to just fall in your lap.
Mhm.
Your sales cycles are going to shorten. The world changes when you have high perceived authority. And
Mhm.
so I think it's worth spending an hour or two every single week.
Mhm.
And so that's number one, is authority. So if you're writing this down, playing along, write 1, 2, 3. Number one was authority. And by the way, if you want my free help, and just go to upmyinfluence.com. We have a lot of content on YouTube, but our authority transformation masterclass that we give away for free. It's a 4-video series. I'm going to give you a bunch of downloads, and I'm going to give you all my favorite free tools that you can use as well. And that's completely pro bono. And I'm happy to share that with you. But that'll really help with your authority.
Mhm.
Number 2 is leveraging platform. And if you this is about being a leader, and this is about contributing, and this is about developing. I mean, look, with social, with podcasts, with YouTube, whatever it is, whatever your thing is, use platforms and commit yourself long term to a platform, and then use that platform to build lots and lots and lots of relationships.
Mm.
So as historically, as a journalist, and I've done over 2,000 media appearances as a consumer expert, it's gotten me in the doors of some amazing stuff. Like, I've done some travel stuff where we've gotten like $4,000 or $5,000 vacations as a result of it,
Wow.
because I had worked hard to build an audience, and I used that platform for good, to showcase
Right.
other people. I'm a
Mhm.
big fan of celebrating, building a platform, and then celebrating others.
Mhm.
Uh, and if you do that, just good things are going to happen. People will come out of the woodwork to say, I would love, it's like when Tony Robbins talks about the 6 basic human needs, significance. It's amazing what people will do for significance, or to
Mhm.
be recognized, how hard
Absolutely.
we will work for recognition. So
Mhm.
if you have a platform, then this gives you the opportunity to put the spotlight on others. And as much as you want it to be about your own ego and the spotlight on you, and some platforms are more akin to that than others, but I would rather use these platforms to celebrate others. And as a
Mhm.
result, yes, I will build and serve an audience for sure. But the relationships I get out of that, and I've already talked about that earlier, is just incredible. It works better than anything I know out there.
Right.
That's number 2, platform. Finally, number 3, and that is generosity. And are you willing to be a giver? Will you give first when there's zero promise of
Mm.
reciprocity,
Mhm.
reciprocation, right? You just give anyway. Now, you don't. So, and this, you'll see this like without my influence, like democratization is one of our core values. And so I believe in giving to everybody. Now, I can't spend my personal time. At some point, you have to start getting more and more protective of your time.
Mhm.
And when many people want access to you, this is the big struggle. When a lot of solo practitioners or solo entrepreneurs start building a team, and they're like, I'm running out of time. I just don't have the bandwidth to do this.
Right.
At one point, we were doing, I had one week where no joke, I think I did 31 interviews in one week. It's
Wow.
just the way that they all kind of came in. And, after I told Lisa, who's the director of operations, I'm like, we have to stop all our outreach, in all of
Mm.
we were doing a lot of outbound invitations looking for guests.
Mm.
And like, zip your lip, man, don't tell anybody else. And we said, well, if it ever slows down too much, then we'll pick it back up. Interestingly enough, we never needed to really do much outreach again. The show
Mm.
took a life of its own. And so anyway, generosity is number 3. And if you truly love people, then you'll have no problem with this. And
Mm-hmm.
if you are seen to be a generous soul and a giver within an industry, you are going to be so well liked. And another thing too, and we experience this a lot with media. Josh, how do I get on XYZ TV, whatever it is, like wherever they want to go? I say
Mm-hmm.
you have to serve your way in. That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you need that appearance more than they need you. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to really make it valuable for them if you want that media appearance. And so how can you show up and serve them in a way that is going to be a no-brainer for them, as they're like, yeah, well, if you're willing to do that, that's how I got on radio. I said,
Mm-hmm.
look, I would love the opportunity to serve your audience. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do this for you. And I'm going to bring this value, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to, like, it's because of that attitude that I, started getting syndicated radio, syndicated TV. And I just keep on showing up over and over and over and over again, even when there's really nothing immediate for me to gain. Like a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with one of the local TV stations. The first TV story was like hey, we saw you on this other news story. Would you be willing to do a news story about a car recall? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I have nothing to gain out of that for Savings Angel.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it. And then, and then I did another story, and this was Lewis Bolden as a local reporter. And then, during the second story, he's like, tell me more about Savings Angel. And so I told him, he goes, well, why don't we do a story about you? And I'm like, that's a great idea. And so again, service and generosity is your key to an amazing lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep on showing up, keep on being generous, keep on giving first in the relationship, and people will love you for it.
I feel like that really ties into the theme we've been bringing up since the beginning about like the thoughtful entrepreneurs, or the people that we love to surround ourselves with, are those who have a sense of responsibility to serve. Another thing I want to add to that is they care about people. They genuinely care about people, and it shows in the work that they do and everything. And I can tell that with you, Josh, that you genuinely care. I want to just, I really want to ask, because obviously we've been talking about the business and what we do, and really the science behind our podcasting. But I want to go to you now, Josh, and ask where obviously you say you like helping people, but where does that drive come for you to just genuinely want to help people?
Um, you know, I could say it's genetic, because
That's awesome.
certainly, from the entrepreneurial side of things, my dad's a business owner. My grandma's a business owner.
Mm,
She's like in her 80s, and she still shows up at her business every day. Um,
wow.
her, her dad was a business owner. My great great granddaddy, Amos Elledge, was a proprietor, and he sold blocks of ice. Amos Elledge, man, that's an old timey name.
Wow.
And I looked at the census records, and it was only 1 year that he did that. And then he ended up having to go back and work at a mill or something like that.
Mm,
But he tried his hand at it. I don't know what the outcome, I don't know what happened. I would imagine modern refrigeration probably killed the ice block business, but I'm just guessing. And so that may have had something to do with it. But so that part of it is in my blood for sure.
mhm,
But then you get into, who we are as a personality. And I'm very grateful in that case to my mom, who was just a very, she just was really, really big on not judging other people. Like
mhm.
that's really, really important.
Wow.
And then just, just kind of this recognition that, look, I mean, we're all kind of connected. I gain value out of showing love to somebody else.
Mm,
It makes me a better person. It makes me happier
yeah.
if I do something nice for somebody else. So why not just build that into what I do on a daily basis? Now, I will tell you, having gone through all this now, um, you might hear the mantra of just pay more in ads and just splash your message to more and more people, and it's not just a numbers game, right? And
Mhm,
people will auto filter themselves. um,
mm,
what I'm describing will feel like it's going to take more time, um, and
right.
and it might, but what'll happen, it's kind of like working on your inner core strength and your muscle. development, or your, your cardiovascular health, as opposed to, well, I'm going to run off and burn 300 calories a day. Okay, cool. Good luck with that. But if you don't have that inner core strength and that underlying supportive system, that's what working on authority, working on relationships, building hundreds and hundreds of relationships. If you have that, you're set for life. It's kind of like, civilization moving from a hunter-gatherer, mindset to, I'm going to build a town here. We're going to build a civilization, and we're going to plant crops. And so it's going to take a while to, to raise your produce, your crops. But you're not going to starve day after day, and you no longer have to go out hunting. You're good. Like you got all you need. So now you can focus. The less time that you have to spend in hunting down new sales, the more time you can spend doing other stuff. And so it's kind of like that, when you look at the history of civilizations, the less time people have to spend in food production, the more time we can spend building other systems for our civilization to flourish. So another really good book is Sapiens, by the way. That's another one of the best books I read last year.
Yeah, I love that you're such an avid reader, and it really reflects in your leadership here at Up My Influence, and also the thoughtful entrepreneur. I think the way that I interpret what you're saying, Josh, in simple terms, is that you're really talking about the difference between instant gratification versus delayed gratification. And I think that when people think of traditional marketing, of like ads and stuff, they're trying to get that instant gratification, that instant lead, but it comes at a cost. And so I really like your analogy of like, hey, instead of hunting and gathering, we're gonna build a town here, and it's gonna seem to take longer, but it's gonna be so worth it. And so that the rest of your life is not just about hunting and gathering.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, and a lot of what we're talking about, and Jen, I think you mentioned this earlier, it doesn't sound as exciting. Gurus will sell you what they know is going to sell. And, so many of us, like amateurs and novices, pin all their hope on rags to riches. And, again, that's fine. You can believe that if you want, but I can tell you, after interviewing 500 people, that's not the reality. It's just not the way that it is. It's just, matter of fact, I can't think of anyone. I mean, once in a while, a fortuitous connection happened early, but there's always a backstory. Just like when I'm telling you my story of, Up My Influence, and, the fact that, kind of the great business that we get to do today, at the beginning, it was just me. I was doing a little consulting here and there, and I wasn't even able to do that. The only reason I was able to do that consulting is because I had, invested my blood, sweat, and tears in growing Savings Angel and growing that into $6 million in sales. But the only reason I got that is because I was putting in 16-hour days for years straight until we started making really good money at it. And prior to that, I had failed in business 6 times. And so there's always a backstory. There's always an investment. There's always an investment. Now I believe you can speed up your that time to scale by investing in the wisdom and experience of other people. Like if you hire me and we work together on your sales system, I'm likely going to save you years because I've already paid the dues. We've made thousands of mistakes in our own sales system. So I'm going to help you not make those mistakes. And when we bring in clients, and again, what we do is, we build 7-figure B2B sales systems. A lot of times, particularly if they've spent any time learning marketing at all, modern marketing at all, a lot of the time I need to, they'll suggest an idea and I'll say, well, let me tell you why that doesn't work. And I've got evidence for that. And so that's why, if you want to build a 6-figure business and you're cool with it taking 5 to 10 years, then that's fine. You could do that. If you want to speed it up, you're just going to have to find a way to bring in people to help you speed that up. Otherwise, it just will take time. So again, proximity, listening to podcasts is a great way. But of course, what we really want is, I want you to personalize that good advice. And by the way, Jen, I don't have a hard stop right now. If you've got,
I'm fine.
Some of my answers to the questions,
I want to make sure I wrap up
going really long.
Yeah, I want to make sure I wrap up beautifully. I don't have anything immediately after, so we can wrap it up in the way that sounds good.
Yeah, sure.
And I know with our B2B services, Josh, we have a testimonial on the website. If it's still there at the time of this recording, of course, where one of our clients was able to make 6 figures within the 90 days of working with us.
Oh, sure.
And so we know what we're doing. Like just like what you said, we've made all the mistakes, and we can help you shortcut it in a way that's effective for you and saves you all that, stress, time, resources, energy, et cetera.
Yeah. But one thing, we didn't really talk about this yet is, again, looking at 2020, looking at last year, what an incredible, just like so many other businesses pivoted during that time. Thankfully, we had already been, so it was August, September of 2019 that Sonia was our first person that we were doing PR, some PR and media placement stuff for her. And she said, she goes, I know what you guys are doing. I come on, hook me up. Because she knew that our sales system was internally pretty great. She's like, can you help me build this, for on my side? And that's what, sure, we'll do that. And so, yeah, she did. It was, by the way, when I say 6 figures, it was more than $100,000 in 90 days. Now she's a very smart businesswoman, and she has some pretty good assets that we were able to leverage. But that's not atypical, because if you sell a bigger ticket item, I don't want to say it's a numbers game, but the goal is to build as many meaningful relationships as you can. And you really can't speed up relationships a whole lot. I think you can exhibit the traits of an attractive character. And I think you can do well to be very authentic with people in a way that is a little bit more, I don't say magnetic, but we've done years and years and years of media training. And there's absolutely skills, and most of it doesn't come down to it. It's quite the opposite of performing better. It's about being more comfortable and honest with who you really are. And so when I coach someone on how to perform better on TV, generally it's about me saying, I feel like you're performing right now. I feel like we're not getting the real you. And as someone like myself, who is a very empathic personality, I generally pick up on those see the way that you're moving right there. What it communicates to me is, I feel like you're not giving me the real you. So that's one of the biggest things that, I think that, how to engender connection with somebody is that authenticity. And one of the most valuable things that I did was I took a year of improv, learning improv comedy.
Wow, that's fun. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. And it was very transformative for me, because improv is not about putting on a performance. And in fact, it's being led and being able to trust yourself in the moment that you'll say and do the perfect thing. And when you have that confidence in yourself, which, it's always a journey. And so, I'm not at 100%, with that, but I think that, as I've done so many interviews and I've got to meet so many people, and, some achievers just they have that level of comfort in themselves, and that comfort translates to confidence. And then that confidence is part of that attractiveness of I believe that Josh can help me, because he certainly seems to believe in it. And he's otherwise seems like a pretty trustworthy person. So I wanted to share that just a little bit, just because
Yeah.
I got on this subject of like, you can't rush relationships. There are absolutely things I think that you can do to make people more comfortable in your presence. And certainly don't sell to people. Now you can lead in the relationship, and you can, you have maybe some questions that you might know that you want to ask to see if it's a fit. But one thing, is that if someone smells sales on your breath, they're going to turn and run. And
Right.
so
Right.
a lot of this is a lot of intuition as well, in knowing, is it the right time for me to do one of these? Oh, it's kind of like a dating metaphor. Like, when it's the right time to put your arm around someone or give them a
Right.
kiss. And if you don't know, then, hopefully you'll learn that after a while. Right.
You'll
So
learn.
it's the same thing in a relationship, and so you're having this business development conversation, and, by just getting to know one another, you'll know whether or not it's a fit or not. And so I share that just, as a bit of a caveat to, you can't rush relationships. Well, there are things you could do to kind of help with that. That's one thing. What you do have massive control over is the number of people that you have and build relationships with. And then, and I will say one other thing, like in terms of like how to truly thrive in sales today. And that's what we're talking about right now. So there's the number of people. So you just need to be talking with more people. And by the way, when you are in a position where you could talk with, like, let's say you're an agency owner, and when you're in a position where you're talking with 10 or more people every single week, you're not as desperate, because if you're only talking with one person a week, you kind of need that person to buy. If you say, well, we on average want 3 new clients a week, what you're saying, if you're only talking with 4 people a month, that means you need 75% of those people to buy. So as a result, you're going to just come across much more desperate, because you need many more of those people to buy your thing. If you're talking with 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 people a week, and you only need to sell 2, it's like that confidence that they will pick up on, the other person will pick up on, it'll be subconscious, right? You let them know, it's like, listen, it sounds like this would be a great fit, and I would love the opportunity to work together, and I think we could do an amazing job. But it's entirely up to you, right? Right. And so that sort of an energy is kind of what you want to, I think where you want to be, right? Where they are completely in control. The other thing on this is that while you can't rush relationships, you want to have processes on the back end. So to your customers, you want it to feel like they're watching a Broadway production, and they see what's on stage, and they have no idea what's going on in the backstage, right? Where there is a flurry of activity. So what does this look like from a sales and marketing perspective? Is that you are dominating the CRM game. You are so good at your customer relationship management platform. You've got excellent, you've got the perfect stages, and then you've got the perfect cadences within those stages. So if it is, let's say the last activity done was a discovery call, you've got 30 activities that are going to happen based on where they are in the journey. So day 13, what do? We go out and write a nice review about them on Google My Business if they have one. Or if we don't find one, we send them a nice email saying, hey, I was looking for your Google My Business and I couldn't find it. If you have a link, I'd be happy to write a review for you. It's like, keep on doing nice stuff for them. And you have like a whole battery. And then the next stage might be, okay, well, they now have an agreement. And so what happens in the 30 days prior to or post them getting that agreement? So those are all cadence items, and it's not just an email autoresponder. I remember talking with one guy, and he was selling a $60,000 branding package, and his stuff was pretty good. I'm like, well, what's your sales follow-up? He goes, oh, when I have a conversation, I just put them on a drip campaign. I'm like, wow, I'm about to swear right now. I was about to use Kamala Harris's favorite swear word.
Oh no.
And it ends in and it begins with but it's I'm like, you are selling a $60,000 branding package, and you're putting them on a drip campaign. The kind of person that would pay you that kind of money does not want to be automated. They want to feel like they're, that you are 100% present for them. And so that's what your customer needs to feel like, is that you are 100% present for them.
Mm. Wow. I mean, Josh, I'm just so glad to have this conversation with you today because it's good for me too, as someone who considers herself a student of marketing and sales and, a continual learner of entrepreneurship. So thank you for sharing this knowledge. And I know that our listeners will especially appreciate it. I know we have to wrap up soon, but if I can squeeze just a little bit more out of you, I'm curious to know, is there anything else instead of the FAQs, the frequently asked questions? I also think it's important to bring up the SAQs, the should ask questions.
Mm.
So is there anything else that, let's say, our listeners should be asking, or if anything else that you want us to know about the thoughtful entrepreneur, up my influence, or just overall being a better thoughtful entrepreneur?
And again, I'm not for my own ego, but I know what it's like, especially, and listen, I want to say, first off, thank you to anybody who's listened to 10 or more episodes of The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. Thank you.
Right.
That's very, very cool of you. And I'm so grateful that I get to provide value in some way to you and your life. And I know that, I'll go in ebbs and flows with certain podcasts and that sort of thing, or, maybe I'll be binging, Thoughtful Entrepreneurs, a show like that for, a handful of months. So anybody that we happen to catch right now, and you've been enjoying our content, I don't expect you to listen to all 500 episodes. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But, first off, so thank you so much for allowing me to provide value to you with this platform, and indulging me, and by way of I think, Jen, I give a lot of, I talk a lot about professional, where we are business wise and sharing business tips. But I know that, sometimes when I listen to an episode quite a bit, and it's very topically driven, right? It's a show about personal finance or investing or, business development, business growth or whatever. I sometimes really appreciate getting to know the host personally, and kind of what they do, what's your day to day like. I wonder that, especially when you're doing all this podcast and all this other stuff. And so, if you were to look at my schedule, especially Jen, before you've come along, my schedule is, it is so it is if it's not scheduled, it does not happen. So I'm very much one where thankfully I've got, Lisa and Stacy and others who kind of help manage that for me, my schedule.
Right.
But yeah, I generally don't start, and much as I'd love to be a 5 a.m. miracle kind of person where I wake up at, I don't, I wake up at 8, 9. I really do. I generally stay up a little bit later. It's matter of fact, I just had I did a bunch of DNA work on my genetics and stuff. And just genetically, it says you're a night owl, just based on these
I
genes.
love that.
And my grandma's a night owl. My dad used to be a night owl. I think now he sleeps a lot earlier. But I've got, my beautiful wife. We've been married for over 25 years now.
Congratulations. Wow.
So, I've got 3 kids. My oldest is, kind of done with college now. She's going on. So I have she'll be, 21 as of when we're recording this. And so I've got a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. And now 15-year-old as of when the show is airing. And so, I love doing stuff with them, but mainly, they're getting to the age now where it's mom and I, we're just kind of doing our fun stuff. So, I'm really looking forward to doing a lot more, getting back to traveling and doing a lot more of that. That's for sure. But so, other than that, I love to watch, I love watching TV shows with my wife, Jenny, who is, by the way, a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's very good at what she does. She works virtually, meets all of her clients on Zoom as well.
Wow.
So yeah. And my background is she and I actually studied family science together in college.
Wow.
And I was good because I was going to be a love doctor on the radio. That was my big thing that I wanted to do. And so that's why I studied relationships and that sort of thing. But along came the internet, became an internet developer. And then of course, ultimately that led to kind of the entrepreneurial life. But
Wow.
yeah, just, just some fun facts about me. I've got a 7-year-old mini Australian Shepherd named Levi. So he takes me on 2 to 3 walks a day as well. And especially after I have like a long, 4 to 5 hour, burst of appointments, just scheduled back to back to back to back. He's my little stress relief where I kind of go out and go around the block. So
yeah,
anyway,
Josh,
I just thought I'd throw a bunch of random,
well, thank
random
you for
stuff that you may be interested, you may not. But I know I appreciate that. Like, what is my host? What does this host do? Like on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
But yeah, usually when I get done with work around 6, 7 o'clock. So I work later hours. If I can get done at 6, I always try to get, I've been very consistent about getting to the gym. So I actually go to the gym later. I don't do that, wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym first thing in the morning. It just, I don't like it. I
hear you.
I feel like that's another thing too. It's like, I don't feel like you have to follow someone else's prescription for what the hustler life is like.
Right.
In some ways, I've earned my lifestyle. Like I've done the other stuff where I've worked, 16 hours a day. Thankfully, I have an amazing team. I don't have to do that anymore. I could, but I know emotionally, I want to enjoy the journey. And, so it's, so I'm grateful that I no longer have to work, 12, 16-hour days every day.
Yeah, Josh, I appreciate you humanizing yourself and letting people know. I really like what you just said now, where it's like, I want to emotionally appreciate the journey. And I think that's another reminder of what the Thoughtful Entrepreneur is about. Is it's not just about the hustle. It's why the hustle? Why are you doing the hustle? Who are you doing it for? Or why at the end of the day? And so I like knowing that you are a fellow night owl, because I absolutely cannot wake up at 5 a.m. That's just, I don't do miracle mornings. That's just not like,
I love those guys. Like, I love the concept. I tried it. I had a pretty good run of doing that for about a month and a half. And then I got sick because I just wasn't sleeping enough as a result of that. And I know I'm sure you 5 a.m. people, I know you're like, well, you did it wrong. I'm sure I did. Thank you. I'm happy. And I'm super productive. You don't have to worry about me. But see, that's the thing too, is, I want in the 8 hours or so a day where I need to be on, I want to be on at 100%. For those people. And I think that generally, when you listen to episodes that I've hosted, like I'm pretty in the moment, and I'm very attentive, and I'm 100% focused in that moment.
Yeah, you're definitely you definitely are the epitome of someone who practices presence, but there's a lot of self-awareness that has to take place for you to set yourself up for success. And just as a reminder, it's okay if you're a night owl. There's more night owls out there than you realize.
Right. And that's totally a journey too.
Well, Josh, thank you for giving me the opportunity to have this time with you, to get to know you more, because I know that our listeners will appreciate that, and really, pulling back the curtains to learn about Up My Influence and the Thoughtful Entrepreneur, and just absolutely everything, and your personal life as well. And most of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to take on the show of the Thoughtful Entrepreneur. I'm really excited for 2021 and all of the guests that we're going to be having on our show. I know that our listeners will absolutely love it as much as I have enjoyed the journey so far.
Yeah. So I'll pop in from time to time. Jen, you are the anchor woman now. You are. And by the way, like, again, it's, obviously we work with a lot of podcasters. I know this world well. I want to kind of share with the listener who's been listening to this show for any length of time. We vetted Jen, like when we got connected, we actually have history as well.
That's
So
right.
your husband,
That's
I'm
right.
friends with,
Mm-hmm.
but when our paths crossed, we instantly knew that you were the perfect host for this program. Like,
Oh.
because and that's a tough thing, because when you create something and it's really important to you,
Mm-hmm.
and founders experience this all the time for their most critical work. It's really hard to find those perfect people that you can kind of hand the reins to for very critical. Being the host of the Thoughtful Entrepreneur for us is a very, very mission critical role. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want to assure the listener, the episodes ahead, you're really going to love. I mean, Jen has the right energy. She has the right, again, philosophically, a lot of what I've shared, in this conversation, Jen shares that. And that was really important to us. That the host really gets who we are and what we do and why we're here on the planet doing what we do.
Wow.
So
Thank you, Josh, for saying that publicly. It's always good to
Jen is
know.
uniquely qualified. Yes.
That's right, y'all. So listen up. I'm just kidding. Kidding, not kidding. You're going to listen to me now for the next upcoming episode. So get ready. Again, Josh, thank you. Thank you so much. There's a lot of thank yous I can give. I feel like I've kind of beat the dead horse with that already, but thank you again so much for your time, the opportunity to do this. And again, to our listeners, we're really excited for you and for the upcoming episodes and the amazing guests that we're going to have on the show.
We got two things to celebrate: episode 500 and 2021, and a new host. It's exciting. It's
Yay.
a trifecta of things to celebrate.
Awesome. Well, with that said, thank you all so much for joining us. Again, this is The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. I am your new host, Jen Amos. And thank you again to Josh Elledge of The Thoughtful Entrepreneur and the CEO and founder of Up My Influence for joining me today. And with that said, we'll chat with you in the next episode. Tune in next time. And do I clap? Is that a thing? Oh, that's great.
All right. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was really fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Well, and then how many episodes do you think you've recorded?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I have to count, but probably close to 30 already, maybe. I have to do the math, but it's a good amount. It's probably at least a month's worth at this point.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's like you start going through the motions. You're just like, oh, it's another interview. And then like every time I hear some golden nuggets, it's like I want to write it down, but then it's the next interview. But I can't wait for it to be out so I can, relive that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And so do you like schedule wise, how are you doing there? Like, how is that, kind of like availability versus, opportunity?
When it comes to the interviews, I feel like I have a pretty set schedule with that now. I know that Elisa, I'm going to be talking to another, entrepreneur. His name is Raj, or King Raj. I guess he's one of your guys' new clientele. He's interested in having me as a podcast host. And I was kind of thinking, I'm still happy to talk to him, but I'm just kind of, in terms of like bandwidth, I'm wondering if like I should just like solely dedicate my time to the Thoughtful Entrepreneur, or like, make room for another podcast show.
I think like if I go, let's shared King Raj. Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what's his so Raj, RAJ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good guy. I'm not sure who. Oh yeah. Okay. So I would definitely work that out with Elisa ASAP. Because I think they're otherwise he was kind of hoping on that. With that plus the Thoughtful Entrepreneur, and then, selfishly, I would really love, it doesn't have to happen. Like I'm managing my bandwidth pretty well now. That really is a big help for me to do the follow-up calls as opposed to the podcast and the follow-up calls. I had one guy I chatted with, and within 10 minutes, I figured out that he really didn't need our service. I was like, that was a perfect use case for us, because I didn't have to spend the 30 minutes interviewing him. And, that way I could just, and then some people don't show up at all. And so, clearly that's an indication that, that's not really like something's up there.
Mhm.
So this has really helped me in my schedule for sure.
Mhm.
So, I mean, ultimately, you know, I would love to be able to have more, you know, someone else involved on the sales conversations and discovery calls and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And but I think as of right now, like initially I was thinking, oh man, we need that sooner rather than later. I think I'm
Mhm.
actually like, I'm okay if that doesn't happen right away.
Mhm.
But then again, I'm also open. So, you know, if you want to, you know, if you want to be on more discovery calls, you're certainly welcome to.
Mhm.
Um, I wouldn't force it if it otherwise doesn't fit in your schedule, but if you do
Mhm.
have the availability, you're welcome to. And then ultimately, though, I'd say from a here, hang on a second.